always on your side. Always on your side. 'Cause we do it right. Any place, anytime, we're always there. Rain or shine. We'll make you smile, smile, smile. We'll make you smile, smile, smile. Love it when you smile, smile, smile. We'll make you smile, smile, smile. We do it right. For the first time I believe it to be true. All of my friends say, when you know, you know. Every piece falls into place when I'm with you. In you I found a love that sets me free. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. When you hold me, I know that I have everything. It's blue skies and big dreams, a billion places to explore. And I will be with you forever. Forever I am yours. Forever I am yours. They say the time is now to go where we want to. Follow the road until it leads us somewhere new. Nothing can stop us now when we're together. Oh, the whole world opens up when I'm with you. In you I found a love that sets me free. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. When you hold me, I know that I have everything. It's blue skies, big dreams, a billion places to explore. And I will be with you forever. Forever I am yours. Forever I am yours. In you I found the love that sets me free. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. When you hold me, I know that I have everything. It's blue skies and big dreams, a billion places to explore. And I will be with you forever. Forever I am yours. ladder up together. Your smile makes the universe much better. We'll take this ladder up together. Your smile makes the universe much better. The sky is our limit now. We'll take big steps to the clouds. Blue skies in our eyes, it's our time to aim high. The sky is our limit now. We'll make it. 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 What you been doing? What you gonna say? How you gonna feel at the end of the day? Do you ever wonder if it ever gets old? Does all that glitter leave you shining like gold? We don't let nobody tell us what to do. Nothing more to say and nothing left to prove. No misunderstanding. Oh, you know.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Athens Church. We are so glad you're here. If you are here for the first time, we are especially glad you're here. Hope you feel welcome and seen. I heard two things last week in the same week. Somebody who said they just loved Athens Church. They felt so seen. They love that. And somebody else said, I love coming to Athens Church. I feel so not seen. And they liked it that way because they had a bad church experience in their past. They need to fly on the radar. I have a buddy who comes to church here who's a Tennessee fan who just loves to be not seen. There's a lot of shame there. You know what I mean? And so just sometimes it's good to just sort of be not seen for a little bit. But one thing you'll learn very quickly about our church is we have designed this place for you to be as anonymous as you want to be for as long as you need to be, right? But when you're ready to get plugged in, you can get plugged in really fast. And specifically, we have an environment called the studio, which is located across from the big Athens letters just to the right when you leave the back of this auditorium, where we're always there to help you get plugged in. But we always also have a first-time gift, a little Athens I Love You coffee mug. So if it's your first time, do me a favor, pull out your phone, go to athenschurch.com/studio, and it's probably over there. /studio, and let us know you're coming, and then pop by there after church, and we'd love to meet you and give you a gift. So you picked an awesome day to come. We are in part 2 of a series called Who I Am in Christ. Our friend Clay Scroggins is here today, leading us in, we have a Clay fan down here, and leading us in music today is Paul and Janie and James David and Desi. Is that the best we could do, by the way? Just Paul and James and Janie and Desi. So it's going to be an awesome day. All in all, we're going to be here for about 65 minutes or so. So why don't you do this? Why don't you stand up? Why don't you say hey to the people around you? Tell them they look good this morning. And we're going to sing together.
Yes. Yeah, in Psalm 16:11, King David writes that in God's presence there is fullness of joy, and the best news is God's presence is here today. He's not far away, he's actually in this room. So there's fullness of joy to be had. Let's take joy in him today. Come on, let's sing together. We worship the God who was. We worship the God who is. We worship the God who evermore will be. 'Cause he opened the prison doors. He parted the raging seas. My God, he holds the victory. Come on, this is the truth today. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's this is who we were. We were the beggars, and now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, and now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing. Come on, come on. Do it again. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. Every voice, come on. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. Come on. And we won't be quiet. Hey. We shout out louder, louder. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be quiet. Oh, we're gonna shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. Whoa, in the presence of God, there's fullness of joy. Fullness of joy. We receive your joy.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Sing. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last He has ransomed me, His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Did He die for me? Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place There's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Come on. I am chosen, not forsaken.
I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I
Yes, so good. I hope that we can walk into this building and receive the identity that we are the family of God, because there's nothing like it. There's nothing like knowing that you are his child, that you are under his watchful eye. There's nothing better. And especially in a time when there's so much going on in our surroundings, so much going on in our personal lives, but also in our world. With all the turmoil in Afghanistan, with the earthquakes in Haiti, with the racial tensions still very prevalent in our country, and a global pandemic that just seems like it won't go away. There's so much that we can look at. But I want to choose today that if we are in the family of God, we get to choose how we look at things. That even though our situations may not change, that there might be unexpected loss or marriage troubles in your personal life that you just can't seem to look past, I want to encourage us that when we call ourselves and we claim the identity as we are in the family of God, we get to choose how we look at what's around us, even though it might not change. We get to look and put on the lenses of heaven instead of putting on the lenses of the world, because the world sees hopelessness. The world sees darkness. The world sees no light at the end of the tunnel. And in your darkest night, you don't see a way out. But we get to choose to put on the lenses of heaven today. If we are in the family of God and claim that identity, we get to look at things differently, because when we look at things differently and we claim that identity, we get to see hope in hopelessness. We get to see light in the darkness, and we get to see the goodness of God in everything. The goodness of God. And I'm thankful for that this morning. So we're gonna keep singing. Let's put on those lenses of heaven. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. And all my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all our lives He's been faithful. And all my life You have been faithful. And all my life You have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known You as a father. I've known You as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. Oh, 'cause all my life, and all my life You have been faithful. Oh, and all my life You have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give You everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give You everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Oh, let's sing this again, come on. 'Cause all my life You have been faithful. Yeah. And all my life You have been so, so good. Yeah. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life You have been faithful. And all my life You have been so, so good. And every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I want to sing this one last time. So Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Come on. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give You everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Come on. Thank y'all so much for worshiping with us today. It's been so good, and we'll continue to be. Y'all can have a seat.
Janie, thank you for that. My tendency, unfortunately, is not to always focus on the goodness of God or the good things in my life. I'm a little more wired at times to focus on all the things that aren't going well and go, God, are you really for me? Are you really with me? The other day we were at the park and I'm there with my daughter and my son. And I don't know, something about that day, we're at Bishop Park, they're running across one of the fields. And it's two kids who honestly, like, it's kind of a miracle that we're here, that exist. My daughter was born with a hole in her heart. She's good now. My son spent a week in the NICU with a hole in his lung. He's good now. But it wasn't easy, right? We're literally watching them run across this field. And it was like, I just saw, like she was saying, the eyes to see in that moment. Like, what if goodness and mercy have actually been following me all the days of my life? Because most days I question that, but something about that moment, I was able to see it. I just want to be one voice of hope in your life today, speaking over the discouragement and over the doubt to go, what if God actually is for you? And what if goodness and mercy have actually been following you all the days of your life because that's what he wants to give to you? I know it's hard to see that in the moment. I love the line in that song, with every breath that I am able. Because some days you come to church and you're like, I'm not able. I don't have the breath to sing that today, to say that you're good, but I want to get there. And I just want to be one more voice in your life going, maybe it's true. Maybe he actually is good. Maybe you can trust him. Hey, in just a minute, we're going to transition toward a time of giving. All of our kind of tithes and offering, all that giving is moved online in this season. And if you're a guest today, you don't need to feel any pressure. This is far more for the people who call this church home. And if this is your church home, I hope that you do support our church financially. Honestly, it's kind of a part of how we can play our part in extending goodness and mercy to other people and help make ministry happen all over our city. I just want to tell you, if you are somebody who gives here, several things happening around here this week that you get to be a part of or helping make happen. First off is tonight from 6 to 8 is our high school and middle school back to school bash. That is an aggressive graphic, by the way. Holy smoke. Okay. Here's the thing. It's because the theme is aging and raging. So the students get to either pick to dress old or gold, okay? So that's the whole deal tonight. And that does not seem very religious, but I promise that it is. And it's because we believe that the church should throw the best parties in the whole city. And truthfully, this is your best invite opportunity, maybe the whole year. So if you have a middle school or high schooler, or you are a middle school and high schooler who snuck in here today, and you've been thinking about inviting some other friends, some other families that you know, tonight at 6 o'clock is maybe your best chance the whole year because it's just fun. It's a big fall kickoff. So that's tonight. Tuesday night, we have a big thing for college students. Can we just make some noise and welcome the college students officially back to Athens, Georgia? So our whole vision as a college ministry, and that's my job, by the way, is to lead the college ministry, is to be home away from home for college students. I know hopefully you came from a home church back home. We can't be all of those things to you, but honestly, we do want to be a home church for you for 4 years. We do. We want to give as much to you as we can for 4 years, and this whole church exists for you. But there is one thing we do that's only specifically for you, and that's these college nights. And so the first one is this Tuesday night at 7:30 right here in this room. Whole lot of music. I'm really excited about what we're talking about. But if you come at 6 and you meet us outside in the green space, we're having a big cookout. We're going to feed you some burgers and hot dogs out there at 6 o'clock. And I'll tell you, this is a big deal because I promise there are going to be some mornings, if you're a college student, if you're new to Athens, you're going to wake up and you're going to wonder with complete sincerity, am I the only person in this whole town trying to live for Jesus? You are. You're going to be discouraged. But then you come to a college night and you see this room filled up with students and you realize, I'm not the only one. There's a whole lot of people who care about the same things that I care about, who are trying to live the same way I live. And so I want to invite you into that community this year. And then lastly, a huge thing happening in our church in this season is community groups. So we meet here on Sundays, but then all throughout the week in homes all across the city, we meet in these little groups of 10 or 12 or 14 or whatever. Groups for married couples, men, women, single adults, college students. And if you're wondering, do people actually do this? Yeah, we opened registration last week, and since then about 1,100 people have joined a small group. And so they're filling up fast. I mentioned last week there's 116 different groups, and I can't speak for all of them, but for the college groups, they're about half full already. And so if you are looking to get plugged in, you need to go to our website today and pick your group. And it's awesome. In the same way that you go online and might go on your favorite clothing website, we told you this, right? And pick a search for a black hoodie and a medium. You can go on the website and say, I'm looking for a freshman girls group on a Wednesday. I'm looking for a 20-something guys group on a Tuesday, right? I'm looking for a married group on Monday, right? You go on the website, you get to pick the one that's right for you, right? And what's cool is there's a little bio from the group leaders. All of our college groups are led by adult mentors and tend to meet in their homes. And it'll tell you what the purpose of the group is. Are we trying to be more social? Is it trying to be more spiritual? Is it about finding friends? Is it about growing your faith? Most of the groups are kind of a combination of the two things. And if you need a combination of those two things in this season, I want to urge you to hop on the website today and join a group. I know a lot of us, if we're being honest, like, groups can be scary. Maybe you had like one bad small group experience 10 years ago in your past and you swore off like all community forever. We talked about this before, right? You don't give up on burritos because you had one bad experience at Moe's. Hello, right? And who has not had one bad experience at Moe's? We all have, right? But what do? You come to college, you evolve. You try Barburrito or Willie's, is my order. Willie's, then Barburitos, and then penultimately Chipotle, right? At the top. But you don't give up on burritos. And that's a lot of research gone into that, by the way. You don't give up on burritos because you had one bad experience at most, right? So don't give up on faith and growing, with other people because of something happened in high school, which is probably honestly just one bad person, right? Or one person that treated you poorly, right? When God would want to bring some other people in your life, some other couples in your life, some other students in your life. So hop on the website and do that. We're going to have our time of giving, and I'm so excited for you to hear what Clay is going to share today. But before we do that, let me just pray for you. God, that song talks about how you lead us through the fire, through the darkest night. And for a lot of us, like that's us right now. And we have all these things like in our personal life stacking up, and then it's just everything in the world stacking up, and it just feels heavy. And I just pray for anybody in the room who feels heavy today that you would just kind of speak to them today. Lighten their load, encourage them today. And not just with like an encouraging thought, but with the awareness that and the reality that you are real, that you are for them, that you are with them, that you desire to walk closely with them through this season, that you're behind them, that you love them. I pray you would take everything that's given now, use it to lead more and more people into a growing relationship with Jesus, and it's in his name that I pray. Amen.
Who am I in Christ? That's what this series is about. And I'll start with that first part of that. Who am I? My name is not Sean C. My name is Clay. And I say that because it took me a while till I started picking up on it, but my wife and I served at a church in Alpharetta called North Point, where Sean and Bonnie had been and made a big impact, to the point where, I kid you not, on a monthly basis, someone would stop me in the grocery store, at the park, playground with the kids, and they would say, "Hey, what are you doing in Alpharetta? How's Athens?" And I would be like, I don't know how Athens is. I don't know. I'm sure it's great. What do you mean? And they're like, and how are your boys? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they'd finally say, "Please tell Bonnie hello." And I would be like, "I think you have me confused with someone." But I would just play along, and usually I'd say something really ridiculous on Sean's behalf and just remind them of what's really going on in the world. No, it was always wild to me. Sean, I guess like we look like brothers maybe, I don't know. It's the muscles, it's the physique. So I'm the better looking younger brother, though, I can promise you that. But my name is Clay, and I've gotten to be here a number of times, and I love it every time I come here. And it's wild for me because I grew up in a college town. I grew up in a different college town, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And so coming to Athens always, I don't know, it feels nostalgic to me. It kind of feels like, reminds me of home in so many different ways. And then I went to college in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. And so I don't really have any reason to be accepted here, but I've always felt that it's probably just my positivity, but I've always felt this warm reception from you all. So thank you. Even though I certainly don't deserve it. You don't owe it to me, but I receive more than I ever give whenever I'm at Athens Church. And so if you're new here and maybe you're checking out Faith, or you're kicking the tires on this church, this is a phenomenal group of people. They will accept you no matter what. They will accept you even if you don't cheer for their team. They will accept you even if you don't believe what they believe. There's just a really incredible group of loving people that just want this to be your home as well. So that's just an outside endorsement. When they were talking about this series, I was just so excited about it because I love the idea of identity. Identity is such a crucial part of my own life. It's been a crucial part of my faith journey. And so I just want to start with this really big statement before I tell you a little bit about me personally and where identity has been more of a challenge for me. But this is what I believe, and this is one of those bold kind of preacher statements that you got to decide whether or not it's true. It's definitely true for me. But everyone, everywhere, at all times, everyone, everywhere, at all times, has someone else's approval in mind. Everyone, everywhere, at all times has someone else's approval in mind. And so what I want to do today is just look at this. It's really a danger, it's a caution, it's a lie that I am what other people say I am. I am what other people think I should be. I am what other people want me to be. And the reason why this idea of approval is so important is because we're all living at times in light of someone else. Right now, there's somebody on planet Earth that you're thinking, maybe that you're even subconsciously thinking of, does this person like me? Does this person accept me? Does this person approve of me? Maybe it's a daughter to a father. Maybe it's a son to a father, or daughter or son to a mother. Maybe it's some boss somewhere that you're wondering, does he or she like me? Maybe it's a group of friends. I know we've got some college students here today. You're kicking off the fall semester. I'm telling you, this will be a temptation for college students, no doubt, walking around going, do they approve of me? I mean, the idea of fraternity and sorority rush, which I would assume is, did we just wrap that up, or is that still happening? We wrapped it. It's happening now. It's happening now. Yeah, I mean, the whole concept is, do these people like me? Do these people think I'm cool enough? Am I wearing the right thing? Am I not? Do these people approve of me? Now, the reason why this has been such a temptation for me is because ever since I was a kid, I have been driven by this. And there's varying degrees. You know, some of you really relate to this, and others of you are like, that's not really my thing. Like, I don't really struggle with that. But for me, this has been a huge issue. Ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated by the idea of being approved by other people, being accepted by other people, of doing whatever I needed to do to learn how to work the system, game the system, build relationships, make friends, so that other people would approve of me. And when you start young and you work on it a lot, you end up getting pretty good at it because you're just always thinking about it. And so there's some things that I just naturally learn how to do, where I learn how to build relationships and learn how to make a first impression and learn how to get people to like. Some of you are like, you're not doing it now, bro. We're not into you. Okay, I'm just telling you. In my past, there was a time when I was good at it. I may have lost it now. To the point where I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior in high school, and I decide I'm going to run for office in our high school. A lot of people see that and they're like, that's a waste of time. That's dumb. Who even cares? I cared. I cared deeply I mean, I had like a whole strategy, a whole campaign. I don't know why, but I went to a high school where there was just a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap music. I remember riding the bus even in middle school, and there was this mixtape that my bus driver would have on every single day. And it was like a whole bunch of like Jay-Z and a whole bunch of like Naughty by Nature. I mean, it was not appropriate music, okay, for 6th, 7th, or 8th graders, but it's just what I grew up around. And so when I get into high school and I'm now running for office, I thought that for some reason this is a good idea to integrate rap lyrics with campaign slogans. And so Juvenile had this song called Back That Thing Up. Anybody? Desi? You know that jam. The whole thing's like, girl, you look good, why don't you back that thing up? Okay, I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's a thing, all right? It's just out there. So my campaign slogan was, back that thing up and vote for Clay. Do y'all remember the band that Beyonce was in before Beyonce was just Beyonce? Destiny's Child, thank you. Yeah. Has there ever been a group where it was more apparent who the talent was? You know what I mean? Destiny's Child is it, you know? Whoever was like managing that band were like, I mean, it's good, but like, you know what? Why don't y'all just go over here and do your thing? And then could you come with me? Like, we got a whole thing for you, you know? So anyway, that was Beyonce. But Destiny's Child had this song. Anybody remember one of their big hits? Say My Name, Say My Name. Anybody remember that song? Say my name, say my name. That's how it went. That was me doing Beyonce. So my slogan was, say my name, and vote for Clay Scroggins. It was so dumb, but it worked, all right? So I got elected our senior class president. So that was my whole thing. I mean, that was my like high school baseball. I did not hardly play. I was not skilled. I was a hustler. They moved me to shortstop. I could hardly get the ball across the infield. But I was voted captain of the team because I had so much spirit and enthusiasm. Some would call that leadership. Others would just call that scrappiness, grit. But that was my whole thing in my previous life. Then I get married. And so my wife and I got married in 2006. And my wife is not driven by this. She doesn't care about this. Like, she would walk into a room and she was like, she would be like, I'm not running for anything. And I'm like, I am always running for something. Like, any room I walk into, my instinct is I want to be approved. I want to be liked by these people. And so what I started to do in the first year of our marriage, and those of you who have been married or maybe you had a marriage that didn't work out, or maybe you have a marriage that is working out, but you get this. This doesn't go very well when you try to do this. But what I would do is we would go somewhere, we'd be in a social environment, and then we'd get back in the car, and I would coach her up on how she was coming across in the social environment. How do you think that went in marriage? Not well. It didn't go well ever one time. I mean, finally she had to be, and it was good for me because I didn't even realize it was all happening, but finally she had to be like, stop, no more. I don't play for you. I'm not being mentored by you. You're not coaching me. And by the way, I'm not running for anything. You're running for mayor all the time. I'm not. And so if you want to go do that, you can just go do that, but that's not me. And it was honestly, it was probably our biggest marital conflict in the first part of our marriage was me feeling like I always had to be approved by other people. And it took the grace of God, and it took a really strong, awesome woman in my life, my wife. What if it was like this other woman? No, it was my wife who told me, who finally had to set me free and be like, stop. Because the problem is, and so many of us do this on so many different levels, the problem comes when we betray ourselves. The problem happens when we betray ourselves, when we betray what we believe, when we betray who we are to appease the people that we desire to please. It's why maybe you bought stuff you didn't even need. Maybe it's why you partied in such a way that wasn't even really your thing. Maybe you went too far in a relationship. Maybe you lied about something, embellished something. Maybe you hid the truth. Maybe you decided you were going to live a life where you were going to show the best and hide the rest because of that desire to appease other people, to please other people, to be approved by other people. And when we do this, it ultimately gets us in trouble. It creates a problem. It creates an issue. And so what I want to do today is I want to try to figure out how can we not get to the point where we just say, well, I don't care. Because that's probably not possible. We're probably not going to get to the point where we go, I don't care what people think. No, I mean, there's always going to be something in us that's going to be driven by how am I coming across? How is this going? How am I feeling? But how can we be free from this? How can we get to the point where we're not giving other people control? Because that's what we're doing. When we live out of the fear of being accepted, or worse, when we live out of a fear of being rejected, what we end up doing is we end up giving that person, or we end up giving those people the control. There's somebody today walking around and they don't even realize it, and you have given that person control over your life. Maybe it's a group of people. Maybe it's a particular segment of the population, or maybe it's a person. But when we live out of a fear of being rejected, we end up giving these people control of our lives. And that's just not the way we were designed to live. That's not the way we were meant to live. I love what, I think Dave Ramsey says this. He probably says it on his show multiple times a month. But he says we end up buying things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people that we don't even really like. Don't you want to get out of the rat race of that? Don't you want to escape that exhausting, never-ending trap? Because that's what it is. It's a trap that we get caught up in. It's a futile enterprise of constantly chasing the approval of other people. And it's not new to us. This is not just a 21st century thing. And it's not something you grow out of. It's not just a middle school thing or a high school thing or a college thing, but this is something that if we're not careful will follow us all of our lives. And it's been around forever. It's been around for centuries and centuries and centuries, to the point where a couple of thousand, multiple thousands of years ago, this king, this man named Solomon, who was the son of King David who killed Goliath, had this son named Solomon. Solomon wrote this particular book of the Bible, a couple of different books of the Bible, but one of them that he wrote is called Proverbs. And it's just wisdom. It's actually, the category is called wisdom literature. And I want to pull out just one proverb. There's multiple of them where he speaks to this, but then in this one particular proverb, he just lays it out really clear. He lays it out in such a way that for me, I can understand it. I can grab it. And I think you will too. You don't have to have a big education in your background. You don't have to know the Bible really well to understand this. In fact, some of you maybe are here and you don't even consider yourself a Jesus follower, and you can still apply the principles of this. It's found in Proverbs 29, verse 25. I want to read it just all together, and then we're just going to look at it just piece by piece. My hope is not that you'd remember really anything that I say today. That's not me just being self-deprecating. I genuinely mean it. My hope is that maybe you would remember Proverbs 29:25 today. Maybe you would choose to memorize it. We're actually going to give you a little card on your way out today. We're going to give it to them on the way out today. Is that right? Yep. On the way out today, we're going to give you this little card that's got it on it. Maybe you'll just put it on your dashboard. Maybe you'll just put it on a mirror somewhere. But here's what it says. It says, the fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord will be kept safe. The fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord will be kept safe. So let's talk about this a bit. Let's talk about the fear of man. What does it mean to fear man? Well, obviously, this was written multiple thousands of years ago, so we're not just talking about men, we're talking about man in the concept of humans, the fear of other people. What kind of fear? Well, in their day, you might have been physically afraid of your life. But that's not really what he's talking about. He's talking about a kind of fear that's deeper than that. You know, one of the strongest needs within you. I love the hierarchy of needs that Maslow built, where he said, here are the basic needs. You know, there's food, shelter, clothing, then there's safety, and then there's relational connection. That we were designed for relational connection. It's one of the needs that you have. And so the fear is that you wouldn't have it. The fear is that they might not accept you. The fear is that others might not approve of you. The fear is rejection. That's the ultimate fear. I mean, one of the greatest fears that any of us could have, more than spiders and snakes and heights and swimming at night in the dark, which is my greatest fear, more than those fears might be the fear of being rejected by other people. Trace back in your own life, trace back in your own story. Can you remember a time where you faced rejection? Maybe it was getting cut from a team. Maybe it was a school that you didn't get into. Maybe it was someone who broke up with you. Maybe somebody cheated on you. Maybe worse. I remember in high school dating this girl who not only broke up with me, but she told me that God told her to do it, which is the worst, you know? Because then it's like, hey, just want to let you know, I don't want to be with you, okay? But it's worse. The Creator Almighty, the God of all of the angel armies, He doesn't want me to be with you. Something about you is off to Him. I'm not going to point it out. I'm going to let you search the rest of your life to try to figure out what it is about you that the King of Kings doesn't love. But I just want to let you know, I see it, and He sees it too. And you know, I would like to think that happened when I was 17 years old. I would like to think that ended there. But speaking of goodness and mercy following you, running after you all the days of your life, that conversation has come after me all the days of my life. Maybe you have one of those too. And as funny as it is to laugh about, it's some of the most hurtful moments of our lives, right? I mean, it's some of the most painful moments of our lives are those moments when we felt rejected. We felt like, oh, that person doesn't accept me. That person doesn't approve of me. And so Solomon, writing this proverb, says, hey, you should pay attention to this. That fear, the fear of being rejected, it's a thing. And if you don't watch out, it will drive your life. It will run your world. He says the fear of man will prove to be a snare. A snare. Now, hunters, all the hunters out there, would you just identify yourself so we can know who to run to in case something dangerous happens today? Hunters, real quick. If you hunt, that's awesome. Thank you. All right. I would imagine, maybe you're like a bow hunter, or maybe you're, a duck hunter and you use a shotgun or something, or maybe you hunt, I don't know, but you probably, chances are, like a bow or a gun, right? I wouldn't imagine there are many people out here that hunt with a snare, that you set traps for animals in hopes that they will get caught up in your trap. But that's what the snare is, right? It's this trap that people would set. I've never set one, okay? Maybe for like a mouse or something, but that's about it, But some of you really understand the concept, and most of us, though, we don't really grapple much with snares. But the idea of a snare is that you'd set this trap, you'd put something enticing in there in hopes that someone would want it so bad that they would grab it, and in their pursuit of it, it would set off this trap, this snare that would catch them up, grab their leg, grab their body somehow in such a way that it would keep them from being able to do all the other things that they want to do. That's what a snare does. And so I think this concept, it's pretty brilliant that Solomon says, I'm not going to tell you that the fear of man is just going to completely devastate and destroy your life. No, it could lead there. But what it will initially do is it will just ensnare you. It will catch you. It will trap you. It will entice you into thinking you can get it, but then it will grab you and hold on to you in such a way that it will limit your freedom. It will limit your ability to go live the rest of your life like you were meant to live. That's what the snare does. And the fear of man, he says, is one of the greatest, strongest, most tempting snares. Because some of you you've tasted what it's like to be approved, right? Any of you won an award at some point in your life? You got voted best employee. You got voted, some kind of senior superlative. You got promoted. Somebody saw something that you did and they gave you some accolades, an attaboy, a pat on the back, a promotion, a pay raise. And when we get those, it feels good. We like it. We lap it up, right? And it gives this little taste of, ooh, maybe I could be approved by other people. And it kind of tempts us into chasing it. But I love what Solomon's saying, that if you live your life that way, it will over time, it will become a snare. And I love this little idea of it will prove to be. It'll prove to be. Meaning, you might not initially get it. You might not initially understand it. You might not initially experience it as a snare, but over time, it will become that. It will turn into that. You think about this idea of what does it mean that this will prove to become this? It's like sowing and reaping. It's like cause and effect. It's over time, it will eventually become that, right? You could play this out in so many different other areas. Like lifting weights will prove to add muscle. Eating a lot of calories will prove to turn into weight gain, right? That's just the way life works, that if you continue to do this, it will prove over time. You don't just see it, You don't just eat the pie and then all of a sudden all of a sudden you're just feeling, sometimes you do have to loosen up the belt one notch, but that's about it, But over time, it will turn into that. It's the way life works. And he's saying it's the same thing. You don't initially see it. You don't initially understand it. But over time, it will prove to become something that you get caught up in. And I love this simple, the simple form of this proverb, that he lays out the danger. He lays out, hey, watch out for this. But then he gives us the antidote. He says, but let me tell you what's on the other side. He said, the fear of man will prove to be a snare, but those who trust in the Lord. But if you trust in the Lord, what does that mean, to trust in God? To trust in him? Well, I when I was reading this, one of the things that came to my mind immediately was that proverb, Proverbs 3, that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways, what's the word? That you would acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. That when you trust in the Lord with all your heart, when you trust in what he says about you, when you trust in what he has already said and is saying and will say about you, when you trust in what he's done for you, when you trust in what he thinks of you. One of the best things you could do this week is, if you missed last week, to go back and listen to what Sean said in week 1 of this series, that there are two kinds of ways to live, that all of us are born as human beings, that we're born into the way of Adam. Adam being the forefather, the first human, the one that we all come from. And Adam, by committing this sin that he and Eve that they started this pattern. They got this disease. They started living in this certain way, and it became this way of being. And when we live to satisfy all of the things inside of us that want to be in charge and want to be in control and want to be approved by others and want to be liked by others, that we're living in the way of Adam. But there's this other way that's been introduced to us. There is this way of living in Christ, of trusting in him, trusting what he has said about us. That list that Sean read at the end, something that we ought to read to ourselves over and over and over and over and over again, a daily reminder of who I am. That when we live that way, when we're trusting in that, it sets new patterns in our minds. That we're acknowledging who he has said that we are. That we're acknowledging what he has done for us. That you were created by God. That you were given a purpose. That you were called by him. That you're loved by him, not because of anything that you do, but because of who you are. And Solomon's saying, hey, instead of putting all your hopes and being accepted and approved by others, what if you put all your hope and all of your weight in what he says about you and what he's done for you? He says, those who trust in the Lord will be, and then he gives us this promise, will be kept safe. Those who trust in the Lord will be kept safe. That we'll get to run to him, that we'll get to find shelter in him, that we'll get to hide in him as a refuge. There's a proverb that Solomon wrote that says, the name of the Lord is a strong tower, and those who run into him, those who run to him will be kept safe. That when you trust in him, when you live from a place of being approved by him, it keeps us safe. You don't need me to tell you this, but other people can harm you. You've experienced it. And it doesn't mean that we don't enter into relationship. I mean, I think it is better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. It doesn't mean that we just drop out of life and go, well, I'm just going to go live in a commune. I'm just going to go live in a monastery, and I'm just going to only care about the approval of him. No, we can't live that way. We're to engage in this world, and we're to love others, and we're to lead with our heart. And we're to put ourselves out there and make ourselves vulnerable and put ourselves in situations where we're caring deeply about the well-being and the welfare of other people. And when we do that, there is a chance that we will get hurt. Unless we're living in something bigger. Unless we're living out of a value that's bigger. I hope you love me back. I hope you like me. I hope you approve of me. But whether you do or whether you don't, I can still be kept safe when I trust in the Lord, when I trust in him, when I trust in what he said about me, and when I trust in what he's done for me. So here's the big idea that I find out of Proverbs 29:25. It's this, that chasing the approval of others, when we're chasing the approval of others, we find that it's controlling. It controls us. We live our lives trying to think, how can I get more likes? How can I make more money? How can I put myself in a position where other people would be jealous of me? How can I get promoted? How can I get more power? How can I get control over my life to where I don't have to be controlled by other people? Chasing the approval of others is controlling, but conversely, living in God's approval, it sets us free. Sets us free. It sets us free to love others even when we might get hurt. It sets us free to be in relationship with others even though we might get trampled on. It sets us free to be in positions where we might get taken advantage of. But it doesn't have to crush us. It doesn't have to destroy us because we're trusting in Him. Yeah, chasing others' approval, it's controlling. If you're a college student, you're kicking off the semester this year. If you live your life this semester chasing the approval of others, it'll control you. It'll lead you to do things you wish you hadn't done. It'll lead you to not do things that you should have done. But if you live out of the approval that God's already given you, it'll set you free. My hope is that every one of us, no matter your age, that we'd quit chasing it. We can't quit needing it, but we would quit striving for it. And we would live out of the approval that He's given us. So I want to just give you a couple questions to wrap this up. Maybe this is just an exercise for me, but I hope this will be an exercise for you as well. I just want you to think through these questions. I want you to just try to answer them as best as you can. Maybe you want to write it down. Maybe you want to tell somebody about it. Maybe you want to discuss it afterwards. But here's the first one. Whose approval could potentially become a snare for you? Maybe there's a face that comes to mind, or a name that comes to mind, or a group of people that comes to mind. Maybe this person's already passed away, and there's no way they could ever give it to you anyway. Maybe this is a person that you might never meet, and even if you had it, you wouldn't even know it. Maybe it's a group of people. You can't hardly even put your finger on it. But you're just thinking like with this, this group, if they ever said to me, "You're in. We love you. You're the best. You got it." It would do something in me. Whose approval could potentially become a snare for you? And then would you choose to make it kind of personal? Would you personalize the verse? He says the fear of man will prove to be a snare. Would you just fill in the blank maybe and say, hey, the fear of blank will prove to be a snare? If somebody were coming and advising your life, outside consultant, maybe the Holy Spirit of God, if He could come and speak directly to you and say, hey, I just want to let you know, the fear of blank, it'll prove to be a snare. Whose name would you put in there? Whose name would you fill in the blank with? Then let me ask you this question. Are they, or is he or is she, or are they worthy of having control of your life? It's kind of a rhetorical question, right? I mean, the answer is, not really. Okay, let me ask another question. Who do you really believe controls outcomes? This has been significant for me in the season of life that I'm in. Who do I really believe controls outcomes? My boss, my boss's boss, the other person that's on the other side of the sales pitch, the person you're asking out, the person you're hoping will say yes, the coach that you want to approve it. Who is it? Who really controls outcomes? There's just one who really does. And so the last question, this is fairly actionable, but would you be willing to elevate God's approval over all else? Would you be willing not to stop caring? I really don't think it's possible. I found I'm 41 years old and I have learned it's really not possible for me to just stop caring. But what I can do, and what I believe you can do, is you can elevate God's approval over everything else. You can decide to say, you know what? I'm gonna make his approval on a regular basis, on a daily basis, on a moment by moment basis. I'm gonna live out of, I'm not gonna live for it because I've already got it. I'm gonna live out of the approval that he's already given me as a child of God. When you put your faith in what Jesus did on the cross, that you're accepting his forgiveness, you're admitting your own depravity, you're admitting your own need and accepting his forgiveness. When you put your faith, when you put your trust in his resurrection, that he defeated death once and for all, when you enter into a personal relationship with him, you become his, a child of God, a son of God, a daughter of God. Would you be willing to elevate that above everything else? Would you be willing to elevate his approval over everything else? Last little story, and I'm supposed to be wrapping up, but they'll start playing some music, which it's kind of like the Grammys. That's when they know you got to end it. But so you can go ahead and start that. Ever since our kids were little, we've got 5 little kids. They're 12 all the way down to 3. And ever since they were little, when I'm putting them to bed, I always try to speak big things over them. I mean, I try to say the biggest things I can think of. God has a plan for you. God's going to use you mightily. God's going to do something massive through you. And so I've been doing that ever since they were a little kid. And I remember one of our kids a couple of years ago, I was coming upstairs to put him to bed, and I had already been saying hey, I need you to go ahead and start brush your teeth, whatever. So I hear him in the bathroom in the mirror, and he's looking in the mirror, and he's going, "You're amazing. God's gonna do awesome things in your life. God is gonna use you mightily." And he was reciting some of the things that I had told him. And I immediately thought, that's super weird. Don't ever say that to other people because they're gonna think that's odd. I mean, we don't need to think too lowly of ourselves, but it's dangerous to think too highly of ourselves, right? So I started thinking about it, and I was like, okay, how do I explain to him that it's okay for me to say this, but it's not okay for him to go around and tell his friends, I'm gonna do amazing things. God's gonna use me mightily. That's not something you just walk around and tell people. So I was putting him to bed, and I was like, hey, I just wanna let you know, I heard what you were saying in the mirror, and that's awesome. I believe that. God is gonna do that. But just wanna let you know, you don't really tell other people that, all right? And he's like, why not? And I'm like, well, because it's kind of, I don't know, it's bragging, or it's making yourself seem too big when you tell other people that. But if anybody ever asks you, here's what you can say. If anybody ever says, do you really think you're gonna do big things with your life? Do you really think big things are gonna happen in the world because of you? Here's what I want you to tell them. I want you to say, well, my dad sure thinks that I am. Because that's not bragging. That's not you gassing yourself up, being like, I'm a huge deal. No, you don't want to walk around like that. You don't want to think too lowly of yourself, and you don't want to think too highly of yourself. But if they ever ask, do you really believe that God's going to do big things through you? You know what you can just say is you can say, well, my dad sure thinks that I am. Because that's true. You're worthy. You're worthy not because you're good. You're worthy not because you got it. You're worthy because the King of Kings died for you. You're worthy because the Almighty God stamped worth on your life. You're worthy because he has approved of you. Yeah, the fear of man, it'll be a snare for you. But when you trust in the Lord, you'll be kept safe. God's gonna do big things through you. Don't believe it because I said it. Believe it because your Father, he believes it. Heavenly Father, I just pray that even as we carve out a little moment for us to respond to this and just to accept this, as we run to you, I pray that we would experience the beauty of grace, that we can hide ourselves in you. And even if we don't feel like it, even if we don't identify it in ourselves, even if we feel like other people are not always affirming it, that we would believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that you love us, that you made us, that you called us, that you named us, that you define us, that we have worth because of who you have said that we are. Thank you for Jesus and all that he's done for us. We can never repay you. We can never say we're thankful enough, but God, we are so grateful. And we pray all this in his name. Amen.